You stand in front of the mirror every morning and look at the hair on your head. You might brush it, straighten it, curl it, or tie it back. You spend money on shampoos, conditioners, and styling products. You probably view your hair as a defining feature of your identity. You think of it as an aesthetic choice. But the real reason your hair looks the way it does is far stranger. It has nothing to do with beauty. It is the result of a brutal, million-year war against the elements. Your hair is a highly specialized piece of biological technology. For a long time, the varying textures of human hair were treated as a mystery or just a random byproduct of genetic drift. But modern anthropology is revealing a different story. To understand why you have the hair you do, you have to leave your bathroom mirror. You have to travel back in time. Imagine you are walking across the equatorial African savanna 2 million years ago. The sun is directly overhead. The heat is relentless. You are not walking alone. You are with your ancient ancestors, early hominins like Homo erectus. They are doing something that no other primate does. They are running. They are hunting in the middle of the day when the apex predators are sleeping. To pull off this incredible feat of endurance, your ancestors had to make a drastic evolutionary trade. They had to strip off their thick coats of fur. Fur is great for staying warm at night, but it traps heat during a midday sprint. So, they lost the fur and developed millions of eccrine sweat glands. They became the sweatiest mammals on the planet. This allowed them to cool down through evaporation. But there was a glaring problem. While the body was losing hair to stay cool, the head was keeping it. Why would a creature desperate to cool down keep a thick mat of insulation on the exact spot that receives the most direct solar radiation? The answer lies inside the skull. Your brain is an absolute energy hog. It accounts for only 2% of your body weight, but it burns 20% of your calories. All that metabolic activity generates a tremendous amount of heat, and the brain is incredibly sensitive to temperature changes. A rise of just a few degrees can cause confusion, heat stroke, and death. Your ancestors needed a way to protect this massive, overheating supercomputer from the blazing African sun. This is where the first major shift in human hair texture occurred. Biological anthropologist Dr. Nina Jablonski has spent her career studying the evolution of human skin and hair. Her research points to the scalp as ground zero for human solar protection. If your ancestors had bald heads, the sun would bake the scalp directly, raising the brain's temperature to lethal levels. So, hair remained, but not just any hair. The earliest human head hair evolved into tight, springy coils. You might think that thick, coiled hair would make you hotter. But science proves the exact opposite. Dr. Tina Lasisi, an anthropologist specializing in human hair diversity, recently conducted a groundbreaking experiment. She wanted to know exactly how different hair textures handle extreme heat. She didn't use computer models. She used a thermal mannequin in a climate-controlled wind tunnel. She equipped the mannequin with different types of human hair wigs: straight, moderately curly, and tightly coiled. Then, she blasted the mannequin with intense heat lamps simulating the equatorial sun. The results were astonishing. Every type of hair protected the scalp better than being bald. But tightly coiled hair was an engineering marvel. It provided the maximum amount of protection while allowing the maximum amount of heat to escape. Because the curls stack on top of each other, they create a microscopic buffer zone of dead air. This air gap acts as an insulator, stopping the sun's radiant heat from ever reaching the skin. At the same time, this airy structure allows sweat to evaporate freely from the scalp. The sweat cools the blood in the head, and the coiled hair acts as a built-in sunshade to prevent new heat from getting in. It is a biological air conditioning system. If your ancestors had straight hair on the savanna, the hair would lay flat against the scalp, conducting the sun's heat directly into the skin. Tightly coiled hair is what allowed human beings to grow massive brains without boiling them in the African sun. But if tightly coiled hair is the ultimate evolutionary life hack, why doesn't everyone have it today? Why are there endless variations of waves, curls, and bone-straight strands? Because humans didn't stay in Africa. Your ancestors were restless. Hundreds of thousands of years ago, they began to migrate. They walked out of the savannas and into the Middle East, Europe, and Asia. And as they moved, the sky changed. The sun grew weaker. The temperatures dropped. They encountered ice ages, freezing winds, and long, dark winters. The biological air conditioner that saved them on the savanna suddenly became a fatal liability. In these dark, freezing environments, hyperthermia was no longer the primary threat. Hypothermia was. Your ancestors needed to trap heat, not vent it. Dr. Sarah Tishkoff, a leading geneticist who maps human adaptation, has shown how quickly our genomes adjust to new environments. As human populations settled in colder climates like Northern Europe and East Asia, random genetic mutations that altered the shape of the hair follicle suddenly provided a survival advantage. Your hair texture is determined entirely by the physical shape of the hair follicle underneath your skin. You can think of the follicle as a biological 3D printer. If the follicle is perfectly round and symmetrical, the hair shaft grows out completely straight. If the follicle is slightly oval, the hair grows wavy. If the follicle is flat and ribbon-shaped, the hair emerges in tight coils. Furthermore, the angle at which the follicle sits in the skin matters. Straight hair follicles point straight down. Coiled hair follicles curve like a letter J under the skin. As populations moved into the bitter cold, mutations that produced rounder follicles and straighter hair began to spread. Straight hair lays flat against the scalp and neck. This eliminates the airy, cooling buffer. Instead, it traps a layer of warm air right against the skin. It acts like a thermal blanket. In places where the winter winds could freeze a human to death, a flat blanket of straight hair helped retain precious body heat. But the story of straight hair gets even more complex. In East Asian populations, you often find hair that is not just straight, but incredibly thick and resilient. The individual hair shafts have a larger diameter. Geneticists trace this back to a specific gene mutation known as EDAR. This mutation appeared roughly 35,000 years ago in central China. But it wasn't just about hair. The EDAR gene also gave these populations thicker sweat glands and specialized teeth. The thick, straight hair was part of a larger, systemic adaptation to a highly specific environment. The environment sculpted the human body down to the microscopic diameter of a single strand of keratin. Then, there is the Neanderthal factor. When your modern human ancestors migrated into Eurasia, they were not alone. They encountered other species of humans who had already been living in the cold for hundreds of thousands of years. Neanderthals and Denisovans. And your ancestors didn't just fight them. They interbred with them. Today, many people outside of Africa carry a small percentage of Neanderthal DNA. And some of those ancient genes are directly responsible for the keratin proteins in your skin and hair. The waves or slight curls in your hair might be a genetic echo of an ancient encounter in an Ice Age cave. But thermal regulation isn't the whole story. As we lost our body hair, the hair on our heads became one of our most prominent visual features. Anthropologists believe that as human societies grew more complex, hair took on a secondary, but equally vital role. It became a billboard for your health. Unlike skin or bone, hair grows incredibly fast, about half an inch a month. Because it requires a constant supply of nutrients, it is an accurate, real-time indicator of your biological fitness. If an ancient human was sick, malnourished, or suffering from extreme stress, their hair would become brittle, lose its pigment, or fall out entirely. A thick, resilient head of hair signaled to the rest of the tribe that this individual was a strong survivor. It became a subconscious marker for mate selection. This dual purpose, protecting the brain from the elements while signaling genetic health, drove the intense biological investment our bodies make into growing hair. Every time a population became isolated, their hair adapted to the local climate. Over tens of thousands of years, this created the massive spectrum of hair textures we see today. The thick, straight hair of indigenous peoples in the Americas, the tight coils of sub-Saharan populations, the loose waves of the Mediterranean. It was all a matter of thermal regulation. Your hair was shaped by the specific angle of the sun hitting your ancestors' heads. But then, the world changed again. We invented hats. We built shelters. We discovered fire. And eventually, central heating and air conditioning. The brutal elements that carved our biology were slowly conquered by human invention. The strict environmental pressures that demanded specific hair types vanished. And as humanity became a global, interconnected species, our genes mixed. The ancient thermal blueprints blended together. Today, you can find every hair type on every continent. The biological necessity has faded into the background. Now, we are left with the aesthetic. We spend billions of dollars trying to change what our ancestors spent millions of years perfecting. If you have straight hair, you buy curling irons to mimic the texture of the savanna. If you have coiled hair, you buy chemical relaxers and flat irons to mimic the texture of the Ice Age. We fight our own genetics every morning. We treat our hair like a blank canvas, forgetting that it is a map of human history. Your hair is a living record of where you came from. It is a testament to the environments your ancestors survived. It carries the memory of the blazing equatorial sun and the freezing winds of the northern tundra. It holds the secrets of ancient migrations and lost human species. So tomorrow morning, when you wake up and look in the mirror, when you sigh in frustration and reach for a comb, a brush, or a bottle of product, stop for just a second. Look closely at the strands on your head. Remember that you aren't just looking at a hairstyle. You are looking at an ancient survival tool.